If you need help deciding whether Timberborn is the right beavery city builder for you, this video will answer all of your questions. We'll start with a 60-second, too long didn't read overview of the game, so you can tap out early if it doesn't appeal to you. After that, we'll look at the detailed mechanics, so you can get a real feel for what it's like to actually play the game, while contrasting similar games along the way. Then we'll finish up by answering some practical questions to help you decide whether Timberborn is worth your time and money today. Timberborn takes the worker management and production chains from Anno 1800 and combines them with the increasingly extreme weather survival mechanics of Frostpunk to create a city builder where you grow the population of your industrious beavers and utilize technology to master the flow and storage of water to survive increasingly extreme droughts. You start by allocating your workers to chop down trees for wood that they then use to construct water pumps, farms, and housing. But when the rivers dry up in the next drought, you'll lose access to fresh water, and your unharvested crops will die. So you must balance growing your population and the number of mouths to feed, while still ensuring there's enough food and water to keep your existing workers alive. Eventually, you'll be sculpting the landscape with explosives and building dams to truly master the flow of water. So if you enjoy harvesting resources, building complex structures, efficient supply chains, balancing power supply and demand, along with keeping your adorable beavers happy, then Timberborn might be your cup of tea. When starting a new game, you get to choose between 2 factions, 3 customizable difficulty settings, and a selection of maps. But whichever combination of those you choose, there's only one game mode in Timberborn, where your overall objective is to simply survive, with no real end to the game, unless all your beavers die, of course. Water is the key to success or failure in this game. Your beavers drink it to survive, and it creates arable farmland around it, where you can grow food. The flow of water starts with these water source blocks that are typically found at the edge of the map. From that source, the water flows using straightforward physics to form rivers and reservoirs until it eventually reaches the edge of the map and disappears. Land that's within a certain number of squares of water will be suitable for farming, but when the next drought arrives, the water flow will stop, as the river will quickly run dry. And even after you've dammed up the river to stop the water flowing away, there's an evaporation mechanic that slowly reduces the water level until it's all gone. At which point you've got to hope you have enough water and food in storage to keep your beavers alive, until the flow from the water source starts once again, with droughts getting progressively longer the further you get into the game. You start each game with a handful of resources, a small number of beavers, and a district centre. In order to function, all buildings need to be connected to the district centre by a path, which can become particularly interesting as you utilise stairs, platforms, and even the roofs of other buildings to access hard-to-reach areas. Your first priorities are wood for building, along with food and water to keep your beavers alive, plus some housing if you're feeling generous. To collect wood, you must build a lumberjack flag, which will employ one of your beavers. You then highlight a range of trees to be cut down, bearing in mind that each lumberjack flag has a limited range. Then once you have wood, you can build your first farms, which will employ a number of beavers to plant and harvest a variety of crops. Then all you need is a water pump in the river, and you have all the basics to start your beaver colony. Then eventually, you can think about farming a variety of trees rather than having to wait for naturally occurring ones to grow back. Each building can employ a varying number of beavers depending on the type of building. You can increase and decrease the number of beavers working in each building or pause production altogether as you juggle your beavers between the available jobs depending on your priorities or to increase efficiency, with a handy summary in the top left showing how many beavers you have, how many jobs need filling, and how many beavers are unemployed. Each beaver will take time to eat, drink, and sleep, so by setting them to a 24-hour work cycle, for example, they will work until they literally collapse. Great for efficiency, however, each individual beaver's well-being is measured separately, and by boosting their leisure time or varying their diet, you can increase their speed or carrying capacity or even extend their life. So keeping beavers happy is actually good for business. Feeding them ever more elaborate food is especially potent, and you can build decorations and leisure buildings to further boost their well-being. Once harvested, each resource needs to be stored in the appropriate storage facility. The resources aren't pooled, they remain where they have been placed, and if they're needed elsewhere, a beaver is going to have to collect and deliver them. So efficient storage and path placement is key. And bear in mind that you can't point and click to tell your beavers where to go, so employing beavers specifically to move stuff around is almost essential. With water and food up and running, it's time to grow your population to fill the inevitable worker vacancies, which highlights one of the main differences between the two factions. The folktales automatically create beaver babies when there is excess housing and the adult beavers have enough downtime to get jiggy. The Iron Tales, by comparison, build pods that are fed with water and berries until a baby beaver pops out again and again. Like most other management games, growing your workforce is a delicate balance, as it takes time for your baby beavers to become useful workers, while your current beavers will eventually grow old and die. So ultimately, you need to grow your population in a controlled way to ensure the number of mouths to feed doesn't outstrip your ability to feed them, especially when a drought is on the horizon. Although you can survive your first few droughts by simply storing food and water in containers, there soon comes a point where you want to dam up the river so the water doesn't immediately run dry when the next drought starts. Luckily, you have several tools at your disposal to control the flow of water. Dams block water up to a point until the excess spills over the top, stopping the water immediately running away during a drought, whereas stacking levees will block water completely to redirect water flow, or cause a flood. Then you have the different sized floodgates that can be raised and lowered to block water at varying heights, allowing you to fully control how much water enters a system and how much comes out the other side. Eventually, you can blast canals to irrigate the land exactly how you like, and build blocks to redirect the flow of water, creating huge reservoirs and as much farmland as you want. To create anything beyond the basic resources, you'll need buildings that are linked up to power. Although there are alternatives, your most common source of that power will be a water wheel connected to the relevant buildings by a series of power shafts. This is where the physics of water becomes even more noticeable, as the speed of the water directly affects the amount of power the water wheel can supply, increasing the number of buildings that can be powered and their productivity. Fast-running water going downhill through a narrow channel will have your water wheel spinning like crazy, provided the water keeps coming. And there are even options to store excess energy. Yes, you're dealing with some pretty clever beavers here. Even with the most efficient building placement, you will soon run out of room, which is when you start stacking certain buildings on top of each other. Housing and storage in particular can be stacked several stories high to minimize their footprint, which is when you also start spending hours crafting the perfect staircase, which itself has a minimal footprint while still giving you access to each level of your stacked buildings. It won't be long before your bustling beaver colony simply has too much to do, from building and delivery to planting and harvesting, which is where the priority tool and setting priorities in individual buildings comes in handy to bring some order to the madness. There is a tech tree in Timberborn, but it's mostly about allocating beavers to a scientist job and building up enough research points to unlock new buildings. Nothing too elaborate, and very similar to Frostpunk. Eventually, you need to construct other district centers to help you spread across the map, as each one has a limited build radius, and certain resources, such as metal, only appear in certain areas of the map. To create a new district, you need to build a district crossing, which has a path leading in from one district and a path leading out into the new one. Each district has its own workers and resources. You can migrate beavers between districts manually or set up automated rules. Then your beavers will automatically shift resources between each of your districts by depositing them to and picking them up from each district crossing. But you can control this by setting import and export levels or banning certain exports entirely. After a lot of research and several lengthy production chains, you can create autonomous bot beavers to assist your fleshy beavers with their tasks, or free them up to concentrate on the finer things in life. A new and somewhat controversial feature to Timberborn in the latest update is bad water and bad tides. Bad water is contaminated water that makes your beavers sick and destroys your crops. Some maps have a constant source of bad water that you can eventually redirect or even seal the source completely. But along with droughts, you can also have waves of bad tides, where your clean water temporarily becomes bad water, presenting a different kind of challenge to a drought. Fortunately, there are all manner of machines for you to research and construct that can purify the bad water and even harness it for various purposes. And you can just turn off the bad water if you don't want the stress. And finally, all relaxing building games need a chilled soundtrack, and Timberborn is no exception. The soundtrack is simply perfect for this wholesome, beavery builder. Hopefully by now you have an idea of what it's like to actually play the game, so let's address some of the more practical considerations to help you decide whether the game is right for you today. Overall, Timberborn is not a complex game to learn, as most systems are intuitive, even if you're new to the genre. The tutorial is a bit basic and can be hard to follow at the very beginning, but other than that initial hump, you'll be up and running in an hour or two at most. The fact that Timberborn doesn't have a story, and not even a real objective, makes it very easy to pick up and put down. You can fast forward when you're in a rush, or keep things paused while you figure out an efficient network of buildings, making it a great choice whether you don't have much time to game these days, or you're quite happy to spend a whole evening absorbed in a game. But it's worth noting there is no multiplayer, so you can't enjoy it with friends. When it comes to longevity, bear in mind that this is an early access game receiving large updates on a regular basis. The open-ended nature of the game will increase longevity for those who enjoy setting their own objectives, especially construction projects, and for those who will take advantage of the detailed map editor. However, longevity will be reduced for those who prefer objectives or story to give them direction. As an early access game, there are currently no DLCs. There are a bunch of mods to try, but it does involve installing a mod manager, which, although straightforward enough, might put off those who are used to the luxury of the Steam Workshop. The base price of the game did increase at the beginning of 2023, which is to be expected from an early access game that frequently adds new content, but ultimately, a sale with a 20% discount should never be more than a month away, so you may as well wait for that, even if you are prepared to pay full price. In general, if you enjoy games that focus on resource gathering, detailed construction, input and output efficiencies, or even survival, then Timberborn has something to offer you. And it's important to note that you can turn off the droughts and bad tides to effectively remove the survival elements if you'd prefer a more relaxed building experience. More specifically, the overall way you construct buildings, lay down paths, grow your population within your means, and allocate your workers while keeping them happy will make Timberborn an appealing option to existing Anno 1800 players. However, as an early access game, don't expect it to be as fully featured, complex, or pretty as Anno 1800, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper while sharing many aspects and adding verticality on the construction side of the game. However, if a decent survival city builder is more your thing, you can compare Timberborn to Frostpunk, as you hoard resources and utilize technology to keep up with the increasingly severe droughts or bad tides, along with the worker management elements, but without the emotional roller coaster that is Frostpunk's tragic story. Ultimately, Timberborn is pretty easy to survive, even for beginners, and by tweaking the difficulty settings, it can be as chilled as you want it to be, or it can be a bit stressful, if that's more your thing. And when compared to the competition, which is often more complex or time-consuming, it's just the perfect place to start for those who are completely new to the genre and want to give it a try. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask, or if you already own the game and have some additional information you'd like to add, please let us all know in the comments below. If you found the video useful, please leave a like and a comment for the algorithm gods, and if you enjoy this style of review, why not consider subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.